How you doing, guys? It's Chris with Northside Insider here. We're back with another video. Uh, actually, the second video on the channel. I took a long break because honestly, I didn't have the equipment to make this stuff good. But we got a little bit of a mic now. Hopefully, the audio sounds good. We should be trying to post some more because of the off season. Off season is a very fun time to post. So, yeah, I'm hoping to be a lot more consistent. News today before I get into the actual plan that I had. The Cubs poached again another coach from the Milwaukee Brewers, Quinton Berry. He's a third base coach. Uh, Not much to say about him. He's a former Cub. He was in the Cubs very briefly in 2015, right before they won the World Series in 16. But not much to say too much about him. But he's one of the main reasons the Brewers were such a good base stealing team. So hopefully that he improves the Cubs on the base paths because they were not that great this year, and that was actually getting us into the video. Base running was kind of one of the problems with the 2024 Chicago Cubs. But let's get into the actual point of the video. We're gonna go over a plan, the Chicago Cubs 2024 offseason plan. There are clearly many flaws within the roster that caused this talented 2024 Chicago Cubs team to miss the postseason, and not only just miss the postseason, but miss them by a wide margin. Jed Hoyer needs to figure out how he can make this team to where their floor is a wild card spot. Take the 2024 Atlanta Braves, for example. They dealt with injuries to Spencer Strider, Ronald Acuna Jr., Austin Riley, Michael Harris, and Ozzie Albies, just to name a few. Surely this team was awful, right? Absolutely not. They were a wild card team this year. Sure, it did take them till game 162 to do it, but they did it. Enough of the small market mindset the Cubs love to have. The Chicago Cubs shouldn't strive to be the 2023 Diamondbacks or the 2024 Detroit Tigers. They should be on par with, coincidentally, the LA Dodgers and New York Yankees, who were the World Series teams this year. Congratulations to the Dodgers, World Series champions. That's who the Cubs should aspire to be. But what I'm going to get into today is a plan. How this team can make some moves to truly improve and be a contender in 2025. Let's get into it. First, let's sign a premier starting pitcher. I know what some of you are thinking. Why should the Cubs prioritize the least of their worries from 2024? The easy answer would be it's not going to be easy to replicate. Thus, instead of risking it, insure it. Shota Imanaga had a phenomenal rookie year and overexceeded his expectations, going 15-3, 2.91 ERA, and a whip of a tad over 1. However, if you look at his Savant page, his expected ERA was 3.46. Now, don't get me wrong, on-field performance is ultimately what matters, and expected stats are not the end-all be-all, but it is useful to have. This is especially true for guys like Javier Assad, who pride themselves on getting out of jams. We saw way too many unfavorable counts and walks out of Assad, and personally, I'd like to see him be exclusively out of the bullpen, if not a chip in a trade, for 2025. He carried a decent 3.73 ERA, 1.40 whip this season, but his expected ERA was 4.97. I do believe Wrigley Field played a big role in the pitcher's successes and hitters' failures this season, but who do I think the Cubs should go after? Here are 3 pitchers I would love to see wear pinstripes, and not the Bronx kind, in 2025. First, let's get the obvious one out of the way. Former division rival Corbin Burnes would provide an instant impact to this rotation, sliding in as our new ace. In his first year since being traded from Milwaukee, he posted a 15-9 record, 2.92 ERA, 3.4 WAR, and WHIP of 1.09. He threw 194 and a third innings this year and struck out 181, on top of being an all-star. The former Cy Younger will be 30 for the entirety of the 2025 season, so while not super young, he's still exiting his prime and should be great for the entirety of his contract. What makes this potential signing interesting is his close relationship with manager Craig Counsell. Burnes has publicly stated that he's someone I'll always be in contact with because he's someone who gave me a chance. A projection I wrote out for Corbin Burnes to Chicago would be 6 years, $192 million, which is $32 million a year. Next, a fun player to talk about would be Japanese superstar Roki Sasaki. He is a phenomenal talent, yet there are some limitations. The main one being that there is no guarantee that he'll be a free agent this year. For those who don't know, in order to be eligible for international free agency, you must have 9 years of service time recorded in Japan. He is nowhere near that with 4, but he can ask his club to post them, which he did do last year but was denied. If posted, however, the 22-year-old will get an astronomical contract. In his career thus far in the NPB, Sasaki went 29-15 with a 2.10 ERA. His numbers are relatively similar to that of World Series Game 2 winner, as well as World Series champion Yoshinobu Yamamoto's. And thus, I think a ballpark contract could look like 11 years, $290 million. High risk, high reward for a potential ace for years to come. Finally, to end this segment, we got Max Fried. Fried is an interesting free agent as there are some slight injury concerns that follow. However, I'm not too worried about them as the major chunk of them span from 2021 to 2023. He'll be 31 at the beginning of the 2025 campaign, so relatively older for a free agent, but still got a good few years left. I wouldn't be willing to give him anything more than 5 years, though, because I do think those concerns could come back in the tail end of his career. So I project a contract for the Chicago Cubs at 5 years, $144 million. Next, the Cubs should trade for a big bat. The Cubs were 17th in slug, so obviously the Cubs need to find a player with more pop. But I want someone who provides consistent pop. There are a couple players who could do just that. First, Blue Jays first baseman Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I've seen a lot of talk surrounding Guerrero and the Cubs, especially since last trade deadline. But the key moving piece I see towards getting a deal done for him will be the fact that he's technically a rental, and he still has a year left on his deal. Even so, the price would still be steep considering he's entering his age 26 season and is coming off a career year where he hit an incredible 323 with a 544 slug and a 940 OPS. He drove in 103 RBIs and knocked 30 balls out of the park. But obviously, if you pay the hefty price to acquire Guerrero, you'd have to commit to paying whatever it takes to extend him. You could also go the free agent route. A free agent who the Cubs have been linked to for a great deal is Pete Alonso. Alonso seems like a great fit for Chicago because he has power that can translate to any ballpark, especially Wrigley Field. Too often this year, there were times when the Cubs' offense went dormant due to the win factor and ultimately cost the Cubs numerous games. Alonso has hit at least 34 home runs in every year excluding the COVID season, where he hit 16 in 57 games. He's going to be 30 at the start of the next year, so he's still young enough to be a force on the Cubs and can eventually transition into a designated hitter. This is going to be a relatively quick video, so here's the last segment, and it's to do the unthinkable. Could it actually happen, or is it delusion? Could the Chicago Cubs actually be the team that wins the Juan Soto sweepstakes this winter? Short answer, of course they could. Do I think it'll happen? That's another thing. But if the Chicago Cubs, one of the biggest markets in the game, don't put out a competitive offer for one of the biggest free agents of all time, that's an organizational failure within itself. Oftentimes in sports, the phrase generational talent gets thrown around way more than it should. But there is absolutely no denying the fact that Juan Soto is generational. Ultimately, Soto will go wherever he pleases, but Ricketts, Hoyer, and company need to do whatever they possibly can to make it a possibility. Soto is undoubtedly a superstar and one of baseball's best players. Only 26 years old, and yet he's a 4-time All-Star, World Series champion, 4-time Silver Slugger. Oh, and did I mention he won the batting title? Coming off of an excellent year for the Bronx Bombers, he hit 288 with a 569 slug and a 989 OPS. He hit 41 homers, good for 109 RBIs. The tricky thing with Soto is what will his contract entail. I believe that whatever he'll get is going to be worth it simply because you're going to get him throughout his prime years, and that alone is going to be worth every penny. I think a competitive offer the Cubs can make this superstar that makes all the sense for both sides would be 13 years, $572 million, an average annual value of $44 million per season. That would cover his age 26 to 39 seasons, and he'll spend the rest of his career on the north side of Chicago. Who's another target you guys like to see? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for sticking with me through this episode, and make sure to subscribe, as I want to make more videos as the offseason progresses. Have a good one, guys. Appreciate everything. Go Cubs, go!